on stream. Teebs versus Gia, Edelweiss versus Pat, and what the players will be playing throughout the matchup.
So Slysssa picked Priest, Rogue.
Game 1 will be Dragon Control Priest up against Even Paladin. Alliestrasza bringing the Even Paladin aggressive lineup after the pick ban. Slysssa having the Dragon Control Priest. And let me tell you something, Brian Kibler, if this match does not go Slyssa's way, she is in for a world of hurt because Quest Rogue and OTK Paladin can struggle against aggressive strategies, even though it's not down and out. This is a very crucial match.
It is, and this is a matchup that Slyssa's deck is pretty well suited for. Not only does she have the typical dragon package of Duskbreaker, which is obviously excellent against minion-based strategies, but she even plays 2 copies of Dragon Moss Scorcher, 2 Primordial Drakes, and 2 Wild Pyromances, which is a card that we've seen kind of going in and out of these lists in favor of Mass Hysteria. So a lot of ways to deal with small minions to prevent them from getting buffs.
That's right, and you can see that this Dragon Control Priest was the first pick from Slysssa, which is a very important one that Allie had to respond to. But, you know, if Allie can get over this hump, it should be at least clearer skies, not exactly a guaranteed victory. But Even Paladin will be able to get off to a pretty fast start, being able to grab that board early. But, you know, if you're going to draw things like Wind Fury Heartbeat before the Corpse Taker, that might make your mid-game a little bit more awkward.
Yeah, this is definitely a rough draw for Alliestrasza because she has a lot of her expensive cards in the form of those 2 Spikered Steeds and that Wind Fury Heartbeat, which not only is a slow, expensive card, but as you mentioned, really downpowers any possible Corpse Taker draws as well. She finds a second Acidic Swamp Ooze here, so she can just curve out and play another Swamp Ooze, Hero Power, push damage. That does leave her open to a potential coin Duskbreaker, which would clear off her entire board, and not leave her with anything other than a Hero Power to continue her development. And I think she's debating now, you know, of course I'm getting the damage in, I'm using my Hero Power. Do I want to risk losing everything I have to a Duskbreaker? Chooses not to.
I like this restraint. It's so tempting to try to just end the game very quickly, but Priest has so many great tools at their disposal, not just the Duskbreaker and Psychic Screams that you are used to, but the new card from Roscoe's Rumble, Mass Hysteria, being a really powerful tool as well. So you have to be very mindful of it. And if you overextend, that's how Priest can just simply outvalue you by going 1-to-1 after they get like a big sweep on the board.
Yeah, this is it is the sort of thing that can really impact the outcome of the game, and as you were mentioning, can really influence the outcome of a match. So knowing what we know now, all of you in chat, let us know who you think is going to win by voting in the Amazon extension there.
That's right, should be in the top corner of your screen. It's called Blacksmith. I do want to correct myself. Mass Hysteria was in a different list that Patra was playing. There is no Mass Hysteria, as you pointed out, the Dragon Moss Scorcher only being the 5-mana removal tool there. But still very useful against Even Paladin in particular.
Yeah, the Duskbreaker here does clear off the entire board and leaves, crucially, that body on the board to continue to pressure Alliestrasza's board and potentially prevent her from playing Blessing of Kings. But the Outer Defense Victors is actually quite good draw off of the Hydrologist here, and the Hydrologist was a great draw itself. That allows her to set up multiple minions that she could potentially have protected to land that buff next turn. And Slysssa, having used her coin, is farther away from answering with Primordial Drake or Cabal Shadow Priest or Psychic Scream.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in that Hydrologist is a pretty solid pickup. The only problem is that these are not the kind of plays you want on 4. You want to be able to play, your Glass Knight. You want to be able to play Corpse Taker, or even just leverage things like the Blessing of Kings to push damage. This already spells disaster for Alliestrasza because this is the point where even Paladin should be pressing their advantage. It's the equivalent of like a turn 5 for, say, an Odd Rogue. This is where they start winning the game already, and now it feels like, if anything, she's behind.
It's true. She needs to be playing from ahead, generally speaking. But she does, the fact that she has gotten Slyssa's coin does mean that she's in a bit of a better position, simply because now she has the ability to Blessing of Kings and use Auto Defense Matrix, which can even protect her her minions from getting traded back into by that Duskbreaker. There is, of course, the issue of the Twilight Acolyte Slysssa did just pick up, which can make things much worse for her.
And Allie's in this position too, where if she ends up just trading, that's exactly what the Priest wants, because they just need to stall for time. And if you don't trade, there's also ways that you can just get punished through the Priest removal tools and being able to utilize things like Twilight Acolyte to get really powerful trades on the exact minion that you're trying to protect. It's a tricky situation. So Allie ends up going for this auto defense matrix instead of the extra hero power to try and protect her investment, which is the #1 thing on her mind. Can I win back the board and maybe even force some bad trades if Slysssa plays around the secret improperly?
Yeah, there's a number of possible secrets this could be. It could be Noble Sacrifice, which would potentially make Slysssa want to heal her minion before attacking to prevent it from dying to the 2/1 that would be generated from that secret. Auto defense matrix means, well, okay, attacking into this is just going to get your guy killed no matter what. This sort of ends up being either or, right? Because if it's auto defense matrix, well, you're attacking into a 2-power minion. If it's Noble Sacrifice, well, you're attacking into a 2-power minion. So she ends up using both, and essentially either of the secrets would result in the same thing here, which is Dustbreaker taking 2 and the 2/2 living.
All right, coming up on some pretty important turns still from Alliestrasza. The game isn't decided yet, but if she doesn't take drastic measures to win back the board, it will be, because some of Slyssa's most powerful cards are going to come into play. We're talking about wide removal tools like Primordial Drake and then Shadow Reaper Anduin to maybe even just single-handedly carry Slysssa to the late stage of the game and a victory.
Yeah, this is a pretty good opportunity for Allie, though. Getting to land this Spike Ridge Steed is something that can it'll be a little tough until you actually can hero power into it. And being able to attack with it right away does mean that she can use this to pick apart the board here. That said, as you were mentioning, she needs to be the one ending the game, because Slysssa has the more powerful end game, and Allie doesn't really have the time to just try and win with just small minions at that stage, because Slysssa has so many answers.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at specifically for those answers. Is there any way for this minion to just get raw punished? Looks like Allie picks up the trait. I mean, it is a very intimidating minion.
There are no silence effects in Slyssa's deck, but there are 2 copies of Fire Tree Witch Doctor. And Witch Doctor being able to access silence or mass dispel could give Slysssa the ability to remove the Spike Ridge Steed before Allie got any value out of it if she just went to the face.
Yeah. But speaking of value, this is pretty much as good as it gets for the Stegodon Cabal Shadow Priest. Taking the control of the 2/6, and now Alliestrasza once again is behind.
Right, she has the ability to hero power into another Spike Ridge Steed here if she wants, which at least looks like, okay, well, this somewhat stabilizes the board, but again, you're not looking to stabilize the Paladin. You're looking to push damage, and Allie's slow draw has just not had the tools to do that. And I feel like this is really getting away from her now.
Yeah, and the way things are panning out as well, it doesn't seem like Tyrion can be the finisher. It feels like Tyrion has to be the heavy lifter to try and help Allie come back for the following turns. Because Tyrion Fordring, one of the best cards in Paladin's arsenal, is great if you're ahead and you can use the weapon to, say, even push for damage. But it looks like she's going to be on janitorial duty for a while to try to clean everything up on Slyssa's side.
Yeah, and this recruit is at least slightly out of range. Ooh, let's see what the discover possibilities are here. Mind Vision, Mass Hysteria, Cloning Gallery.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, the Mind Vision's kind of interesting because it gives you some amount of info as to what your opponent's working with. I feel like with this sort of hand and this sort of board state, that is potentially an opportunity because, well, your opponent maybe just has big expensive stuff like Tyrion in their hand. They haven't really been doing much for a lot of the game yet. Maybe they have reactive cards that could be good for you, like an Equality you could pair with Primordial Drake. She does pick the Mass Hysteria, which I'm not totally sold on. If only because she's just so far ahead and has so many other clear tools. But it's hard to go wrong with, well, if something goes wrong,
right,
I have this in my back pocket to use.
Exactly. I think it's perfectly fine picking up removal tools because that's playing into your win condition anyways, especially because Shadow Reaper Anduin as a Death Knight thrives in those situations where they weave in removal and even deal damage to their opponent.
Yeah. Slysssa just needs to not die, right? She just needs to keep herself alive, and her deck naturally just has more powerful cards than Alliestrasza's by and large, especially considering her hand right now.
Right.
So the Mass Hysteria, if somehow Allie is able to build a big board, maybe she has a couple of small minions and Sunkeeper Tarum and is able to wipe Slyssa's board, that Mass Hysteria can get her back into the game right now.
Yeah, Corpse Taker draw is not even necessarily that impactful because of the Wind Fury Heartbeat. It's more the fact that it's just very late in the timing window. Corpse Taker in this portion of the game feels so much easier to deal with from the Priest side now that they have access to 8 mana and they're this much behind on board. So you have two different ideas here from Alliestrasza. She can try to play, a little bit more value-oriented. There's a pretty decent consecration in this situation. You can utilize True Silver Champion for a full clear. But you're also, once again, not doing something that's super amazing. So you have to hope that your opponent doesn't have that great of a development turn on each.
Alliestrasza does clean up this board here with that consecration.
Except she's about to walk into, well, with the option for another Cabal Shadow Priest right off the bat.
Yeah, and that just puts her in another hole here. And Slysssa picking up a Northshire Cleric, that's another tool she has to extend her advantage. If there's ever a board that ends up having minions on both sides, well, Cleric can just start punching in.
Testing talk.
I wonder.
Well, I think that stealing the Stegodon here is more than entirely called for. I mean, again, it's the whole point of being able to stall out your opponent's momentum. And now that they've used 2 Spikered Steeds and Blessing of Kings, they're really hoping that any minion that can stick on board can help carry them through the late stages of the game here.
Yeah, Alliestrasza, she's got to be a little bit afraid. Well, if she does play Tyrion here, she's kind of wasting, potentially wasting the charge of this True Silver Champion. And then, it does just play into, well, Anduin is such a huge tempo swing, and Slysssa wants to play Anduin just proactively anyway at some point pretty soon. So if she does just walk Tyrion into it, it's pretty unfortunate. But yeah, this is, as we've been saying, since kind of the middle turns of this game, Allie's draw has been fairly slow, and now Slysssa has been able to get to a position where she has the advantage. And Allie's playing a deck that, yes, it has tools like Equality, like Consecration, to get back into games, but those are generally effective at swinging the game back in your favor against other minion-based decks, other aggressive decks. And even if you can clear the board, well, that's what the Priest wants. They want the board to be cleared. And does not really work into your game plan against them. Yeah. So here we see Allie eventually, okay, I'm going to use my True Silver Champion, get that damage in because this Tyrion's going to die. And Slysssa has a fantastic answer to it in the form of Shadow Reaper Anduin to get that damage going too.
Yeah, and even start counting down the clock even faster on Alliestrasza, because before, Slysssa just has been playing defense and keep away, trying to prevent any aggression from getting to be able to overwhelm her. But now Slysssa has the opportunity to even flip the aggression right back. Finally, with enough resources like Mind Blasts and Shadow Vision, can be able to set up maybe 3 or 4 turns down the line a kill opportunity to end this game and shut Allie out from this series.
Yeah, and even on top of that, it's just such a powerful board control tool. It stops Allie from being able to really develop much meaningfully in terms of minions. Slysssa has so many cards in hand that she can fire off multiple pings every single turn.
I mean, that being said, we know that the Ashbringer weapon that's given off of Tyrion is still very powerful, and you can't sleep on Even Paladin. The only problem is that usually at this juncture of the game, the opponent's a lot weaker. You've been able to deal some damage because you grab those early game board states with the very cheap hero power. So usually your opponent's working at 15 to 20 range. When your opponent's basically at full life,
right,
that feels like you have so much ground to work with.
Yeah,
or sorry, you have to make up for.
Yeah, and we see finally the Windfury Hybrid come down the same turn as the Corpse Taker. It's been in the hand the whole time, but it's like, all right, well, this is not terribly happy for Alliestrasza, and now Slysssa really is in a position where she can decide, well, how do I want to pick this all apart? She has a lot of options. The Primordial Drake, she has Shadow Vision, she could go find a Psychic Scream, she has that Mass Hysteria. It is interesting how Mass Hysteria interacts with minions with Divine Shield because they will get attacked into and then still attack.
Right.
And this is a board that could easily get mopped up by that Mass Hysteria, especially in combination with the hero power.
Yeah, and also because Allie's using her own life to swing at minions, she's also going to eventually be very close to dying because Slysssa already has 1 Mind Blast. So should Slysssa start weaving in those Void Spikes from Shadow Reaper Anduin's hero power between every single play of removal, Alliestrasza is just going to be closer and closer to death. So I anticipate that Slysssa pretty much feels very close to being locked in this game unless Allie can draw something really amazing, and also Slysssa gets a little careless, which I don't anticipate that happening.
Ooh, the perfect result.
Wow.
Allie's minions just both attacking each other, and now you can just fire off to the face, Cabal Shadow Priest to the face, and as you mentioned, Allie's life total is getting precariously low. And she has really no way to stabilize here. You know, another Corpse Seeker. Yeah, that's a Divine Shield lifesteal taunt, but it can only really delay the inevitable at this point.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, you know, maybe if the board could get reset, then maybe Allie can start some charge, because Corpse Taker is very problematic to deal with, even if it doesn't have Wind Fury. Problem is, Slysssa still has a lot more gas with the 2 Primordial Drakes, just in case Allie goes super wide on the board. Yeah,
and just the hero power, being able to continue to pick away at anything Allie plays. Yes, she can put them things in the way, but just hero power, attack, Divine Hymn, draw some more cards, ping again. There's just so many ways that Slysssa can continue to both push the board state and push her overall advantage in the game.
This is something that even Paladin has struggled. Since Call to Arms got moved from 4 mana to 5 mana, you're no longer even able to play an Even Paladin unless you're a madman. Even Paladin has like no card draw. You know, when you compare it to Odd Paladin, a lot of lists tend to sometimes include like a Divine Favor to compensate in case they get blown out of resources. In this case, this is part of the criticism against Even Paladin, is that it can gas out, and just you have to work with whatever resources you're given, and you don't really have too many more comeback mechanisms when you're out of cards.
Yeah, and speaking of being out of cards, Allie playing her last minion, we saw her hesitate a little bit there before playing the Serenite Chain Gang, thinking, well, I don't want to completely overextend everything into the board in case Slysssa has a Psychic Scream, but she's also in a position where you just kind of hope that they don't have it, because you don't have the luxury of waiting against the Anduin hero power and against a deck that has so many tools to generate advantages.
That's right. I'm trying to look at Slyssa's deck list here, and even if she can guarantee, say, a lethal, because she has Shadow Visions potentially into Mind Blast number 2, and I think that's the case. She doesn't have many spells in her deck. She has Divine Hymn, Mind Blast, Shadow Visions, Psychic Scream. I think that's it. Oh, Power Witch Shield. But now that she's already drawn with Divine Hymn and narrowed down the possibilities, she has 16 guaranteed, and without a lifesteal, this is 100% death. Well played by Slysssa, and that's going to be game 1 over to our Priest player.
Yeah, the Mind Blast plus Ping Chain will close things up. And as you mentioned, this is a very big win for Slysssa here, because this is a key deck given the dynamic of the particular lineups we have here.
That's going to do it. Alliestrasza loses with Even Paladin, but, you know, she has a couple tries to take down this Control Dragon Priest. But, you know, Slysssa, she's going to hold on to this deck for dear life, because it's so crucial to give her other decks as many chances to win as possible.
Yeah, very important to note for those who may just be tuning in for the first time today, this is a last hero standing tournament.
To make that comeback again, at least for now, we're going to go to Murloc Mage versus a Dragon Control Priest. And I guess I'll just go to Brian Kilbert for this one. Who wins out, Dragons or Little Fishies?
Well, one of them eats the other pretty handily, but no, in terms of the way they actually interact in the game, that card we see in Slyssa's opening hand there, Duskbreaker, the single most important card in this matchup, because the Murloc Mage deck can snowball very hard if it is able to get on the board quickly, and the Dragon Priest does not have ways to answer the early game board. And really, Duskbreaker is the way to do that. So Slysssa needs Duskbreaker, another Dragon.
Yeah, the Dragon.
She's got the Duskbreaker. She doesn't have another Dragon, but she now does have Cleric Pyromancer. She has the coin too. So Pyromancer, Cleric, and coin can give you a little bit more tools to help interact with that early board. And Alliestrasza, she has the Tide Collar. Ooh, Rockpool Hunter is the very first draw.
Goodness.
So Slysssa, if she sees the Tide Collar, that's, you know, got to be a little bit painful here. She still has no Dragon to activate Duskbreaker, so we're going to see the Cleric come down. This can at least get a little bit of damage on that Tide Collar, or we'll just see if this goes straight to the face.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like what happens when one player draws well and the other doesn't, but these are like really good draws on both sides. Now, with the Dragon Moss Scorcher being picked up, that Duskbreaker will be available as soon as next turn for Slysssa, unless Alliestrasza picks up another really crucial card in being able to buff her Murlocs with the Cold Light Seer.
Right, Cold Light Seer is the really key card that Allie's looking for now to get her her minions out of range of the Duskbreaker. And frankly, that's probably what's on Slyssa's mind right now. Do I play my Pyromancer? If I play my Pyromancer and you... Oh, we need blessings to you. That's the corrective mode here.
Overheal is not a bounty in WSOE 2. Just want to point that out. And, you know, if anything, I really like this Slysssa for maybe even having Allie potentially feel a little bit comfortable. You know, like it's one of those things where it seems very friendly, you're trying to do it, but all of a sudden coin out the Dustbreaker and crush your opponent's dream.
Ooh, and that Scale Worm is actually also a pretty big draw. We see the bit of a laugh of shaking of her head from Alliestrasza there as Dustbreaker comes down. Like I was saying, that's the key card. And Colvin's here. The next draw for Allie there.
Yeah. Where's that Craigslist for missing connections?
And now Allie is just playing board control here. Frostbolting, pinging the face. Again, much like last game, not the position you want to be in. You don't want to be playing control against the controlled deck. You need to be beating them down because they have the more powerful endgame. Alliestrasza still has tools to get back into this. She could find Aluneth is a way for her to dig deeper and find some more action, more burn. But she doesn't have very much time before that's going to be out of range.
Yep, that's a really good summary of it. And interesting enough, I did a little bit of data digging, and across many ranks, Control Priest versus Murloc Mage is definitely a very close matchup. It's surprisingly close to 50-50, but I think it tends to lean towards whether or not Control Priest can remove some of the early Murlocs, and if they do, it feels like they're very faded from that point on.
Well, I mean, which is really Dustbreaker is the key card there. I mean, there can be games depending on the specific Murloc draw the mage has where Pyromancer is good enough, Pyromancer shield and such, but Dustbreaker is really the big breaker here, and Slysssa had it, and now Alliestrasza is going to need to play from behind.
Yeah, and because you don't draw like Dustbreaker as often, and even if you do, you need that dragon requirement. It can make the Control Priest feel a little bit more inconsistent. So, it depends on who you ask. If you ask the data, they tend to be more objective, but a lot of the top players will feel like Murloc Mage should be able to get a little bit more of an edge because of how hard it is to make those connections, which Slysssa did by including more copies of dragons in her deck so that she can have that synergy. If she had, say, the Patcher's list that had mass hysterias, so the Dragon Maw Scorcher, would we be in a similar position to this?
Yeah, sometimes that can be too slow. Not having sufficient dragons to activate Duskbreaker is one of the ways that you can easily lose against aggressive decks, and sometimes some cards may seem somewhat suboptimal, but end up being really important to just make your best cards work. And now here, Slysssa just playing out the Wild Pyromancer. I like this. Some people would want to hold Pyromancer to, I want to use this with my spells to clear your board. She just wants to get the stats on the board. She just wants to have a minion that's able to proactively pressure Allie's potential plays.
Yeah, I want to see if Allie can piece together some kind of assault, but right now it feels pretty weak no matter what she does. And if Slysssa still has ultimate removal tools like Psychic Scream, she's going to be even that much more dependent on having an Aluneth draw.
And here Allie's big question is, do I play Coldlit Seer or do I play Primal Fin Lookout? The Coldlit Seer makes it more likely she's able to keep something on the board to potentially Fungalmancer because she gets that 6 health Murloc, but it also means that potentially Lookout is stranded her hand later on.
Yes.
So now, finds another Lookout if she wants it. But that's the second Lookout can potentially get her more stuff, but it's also a little slow. And she doesn't really have time to just play this incremental value game against Slysssa. Yeah, I like the Tidecaller pick. I like trying to set up for, okay, well, if one of these lives, I have Tidecaller into Fungalmancer or Tidecaller into Seer.
I mean, it makes sense, too, because while, the initial value generation is very appealing just from, a standpoint of like, well, I don't have many cards. Maybe I feel like I need to maximize it. You do have a small window still before the Priest can really get going and just have everything.
And here, Slysssa has the ability to clear this board. She can use Powered Shield and the Divine Hymn. She can go ahead and just heal her Pyromancer here, bump it into the Amalgam and Divine Hymn, which will both heal her and her Pyromancer and kill the Lookout as well.
Yeah, for Slyssa's mind, things like Mind Blast, not that useful at the moment. Kind of just, ditching the dragon always feels really bad. When you, Dragon Maw Scorch is kind of the linchpin of this entire hand, right? So, but it is what it is. I think grabbing board control also does have a lot of merit because you're able to answer Murlocs preemptively.
Yeah, there's definitely some value to just having a 3/6 on the board. It's not a minion that the Murloc Mage deck is really able to answer very well. Most of their minions die to it, so you have a lot of stats that are tough for them to play things into here. You know, the second Fungalmancer draw, pretty awkward for Alliestrasza. One of the best cards in the deck at continuing to push an advantage, but pretty bad when you end up falling behind.
Yeah, and I guess maybe just shows a testament of Slyssa's confidence, because she has ways to back it up too. Like Twilight Acolyte still is active because Dustbreaker is a dragon, and then you have Divine Hymn and other ways to cement your board. And again, if things get really bad, you can Psychic Scream. So she feels confident enough to extend onto the board, and more likely than not, she's going to have to draw support cards to make this feel a lot better.
All right, well, this is a big Tidecaller. Going to go ahead and use one of the Fungalmancers here. Oh, another Scorcher. This could just be a clear with, well, you could attack and heal Duskbreaker and clear these off. Scorcher itself is not, it's actually probably fine to just bump into the Tidecaller and Scorcher again, because you don't really care too much about the 2/2 Fungalmancer. It's not a Murloc itself, so there's no really dangerous potential buffs for it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think again, Dustbreaker gets shut off, and with 2 dragons already down the drain, there's not many more left in the deck besides Twilight Drakes and Primordial Drakes, but I think you're still in a good spot with this extra 3/6.
Yeah, and Slysssa still has Psychic Scream in her hand. So if Allie has some big turn where, say, she plays Book of Specters, draws a bunch of Murlocs, plays a bunch of Murlocs, okay, well, you can just have that in your back pocket to answer immediately. So there's only really the threat of a board that doesn't immediately deal damage to you. So Slysssa just wants to develop, okay, I'm going to keep developing minions, keep having on-board ways to proactively answer your stuff.
All right, and as you guys can see in the left side of your screen, Gia has officially defeated Teebs, which is great for people who want to root for her and other casters who feel validated by having a caster compete. Teebs knocked down the top 8, and so congratulations to Gia for moving on to the round of 4.
Back in this game, Allie trying to find the ways she can maximize these Fungalmancers here, and yeah, when she's thinking, I gotta kill these minions. When Priest gets these big health minions on the board, they can use them for board control better than any other class, because they do have the ability to keep them alive with that hero power, keep them alive with healing spells like Divine Hymn. And now, though, Slysssa does have no dragon. She has just the Dustbreaker available and no way to activate it. Does have the Witch Doctor, which finds Divine Hymn, Shadowform, and Mind Vision. Yeah, Divine Hymn, not a surprise in that pick. Definitely able to just keep herself afloat.
Her main strategy for this entire series is going to be fairly straightforward for every single game she plays, which is stave off the aggression. And when you look at Alliestrasza, the way she drafted for this specific series was to try to pressure the other decks like Quest Rogue and OTK Paladin, and even to a certain extent the Dragon Priest, because Murloc Mage gets to such a fast start that it should be able to overwhelm the Priest. Not the case when there's double Dustbreaker, double Dragon Maws with a Psychic Scream to back it up.
Yeah, I mean, if Alliestrasza had the draw she had here and Slysssa did not have Dustbreaker, this game would have ended on like turn 4, turn 5.
Right, that's what Murloc Mage does.
Right.
It ends games super quickly and then sends it back the momentum the other way. And then Slysssa would have been in dire straits because she has Quest Rogue, which does not hold up well to aggro, especially with all the nerfs that's happened over the years. And then OTK Paladin, which I'm still, trying to figure out where that exactly stands, because it does have a lot of good anti-aggro tools, but sometimes it also does nothing.
All right, well, Alliestrasza trying to do her best with this very bad situation here.
Yeah, needs Aluneth in the next couple turns. The good news for her, though, for Alliestrasza, that is, she still has plenty of time. Like, Slysssa does not have anything aggressive like she did with the Shadow Reaper Anduin with the Mind Blast. She only has Mind Blast and Divine Hymn, which are support cards.
It is true, and specifically if she does find exactly Aluneth, then maybe she can start clawing back to this game by generating enough threat. But even just Slysssa gaining control of the board to such a significant extent can really make this game out of reach for Slysssa, or rather for Alliestrasza, simply because the Murloc Mage deck really revolves around getting damage on the board out of its minions. And, if you play out 5 minions, but your opponent has 4 minions to kill them, even if you keep drawing those cards, you need to be able to actually get them to attack your opponent's face.
Yep, you're completely spot on. And speaking of spot on, that play just feels so devastating from Allie, because if she gets some of her strongest cards in this position, Gentle Megasaur, at best, it can just give a slight buff to one of her minions. Fireball will help control state of the board. I mean, if there's a bigger life discrepancy between the two, Allie was at full and Slysssa was lower, you could justify fireballing for potential draw off the top of their deck. But in this case, not really that great of an option.
Yeah, when you have to send your fireballs at minions to protect your minions, and your opponent's still at 25, you're in a bit of trouble. And Slysssa even has that second Divine Hymn because of the Fire Tree Witch Doctor. She has more heal.
Yeah, so would you be in favor of saving this fireball or just tossing it at a minion?
I mean, I really think that, A, you need to give yourself time to find Aluneth. B, you need to get minion damage in. So I think that you have to kill the minion. I don't think... Oh, well, speaking of killing the minion, there's even another minion that Allie's going to have to kill, which is her own, as the Cabal Shadow Priest steals it away. Yeah. And Slyssa's a comfortable enough life total. She's going to heal that up. I'm the one with the Murlocs now. Look at me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the Murloc deck now.
I mean... Look, there were so many good draws for Slysssa to have that Cabal Shadow Priest looks the flashiest, but, she pretty much drew all of her support cards, like the Witch Doctor, the Mind Blast, and Divine Hymns. Like, she's pretty much just going to draw minions all the way through. Right.
Yeah, and Alliestrasza's only cards that really matter at this point are Aluneth and Book of Specters, and I think at this point it's just actually too late for either of them. Slysssa has the two Mind Blasts in hand. She has a big enough board that she's just going to end the game next turn.
That's right. Alliestrasza, like you said, the Book of Specters can be pretty good. Fireball can help stall a little bit, but even if she removes a full minion on board, 10 damage is in the hand just from the Mind Blast alone. Which is still always amusing to me because, what a world we live in where Mind Blast is very regularly played after being mocked for years in Hearthstone. That's kind of a story that we hear very frequently in this game.
Well, no one mocking it here as Mind Blast #1 and Mind Blast #2 ends the game and puts Slysssa one game closer, one game away from ending the series and advancing to the semifinals.
Slysssa up 2-0, so the plan is going very well. So
at first, and now with Even Shaman, it is not a matchup that is particularly in her favor for sure.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the hardest matches for Allie to win this entire head-to-head after the draft pick ban phase. And that's largely because Even Shaman is so board-centric and how devastating it is for a single Dustbreaker, let alone having waves of them if you're playing like Even Paladin that can help stack some advantages. And it's just the way even things line up. There's so many things that like 3 health or less early on, and it just happens to get swept away. And Slysssa with once again having early game plays, and if she can pick up another Dustbreaker, she's looking like she's the clear favorite to climb up that bounty board of 3-0 sweeps.
Yeah, this Cleric is obviously a pretty big deal for Slysssa here because it not only is able to threaten some of the minions that Alliestrasza could potentially play, but also obviously generate her more cards. So if Alliestrasza, say, Hero Powers this turn, which her deck always wants to do, even just hitting a Searing Totem would be pretty awkward. Hitting a Healing Totem could even give Slysssa those cards without any mana uses invested. All right, gonna go ahead and coin out the Nimbus here, which is interesting because it does give Slysssa a minion to attack into and heal, and then she'll need to commit something to even kill that Cleric as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of putting out some kind of 2-mana minion. You have to put a 2-mana minion that you're willing to kind of sacrifice, though, if Flame Tongue Totem ends up coming out to trade into the 1/3. It feels like Primal Fin Totem, obviously unreliable because it has a 0 attack stat. And then Knife Jug is something that you want to kind of have better combos with as opposed to simply playing it and trading onto the board. So Menacing Nimbus doesn't feel great, but you got to get the job done. That Cleric can do so much more if you don't answer it early.
Yeah, the Cleric is very important for Dragon Priest. It's only real source of card draw. Obviously, Powered Shield draws a card, but it costs a card to draw a card. So Cleric, if you can actually generate additional cards, and you can find those key Duskbreakers and things like that if it's allowed to stay in play for multiple turns. Slysssa could use Powered Shield here on her Pyromancer. It would get it out of range of the Merc Spark Eel, which is one of the big ways that Alliestrasza would be able to potentially swing this back in her favor. So yeah, I like the use of Powered Shield here.
Also, might get you one step closer to having some really crucial cards. Powered Shield and Wild Pyromancer is much better against the Paladins as opposed to the Shamans, which has 0/2s and ways to even heal up past the Pyromancer damage.
And Slysssa has just no Dustbreaker, but an otherwise excellent hand with this Scale Worm to follow up, given that Alliestrasza is not really playing from a position of strength here. Even if she hero powers and, say, gets a Taunt Totem, a Stoneclaw Totem, Alliestrasza still has the ability to clear off that Flame Tongue thanks to the Scale Worm.
Do you feel like because of this play, you can get a feeling of Dustbreaker? Because, if you have Dustbreaker, you don't mind your opponent extending a little bit more into the board. And then, but having Dustbreaker jeopardizes your own Pyromancer. It's
true. Yes and no, because Dustbreaker is powerful at many stages of the game against even Shaman. You don't necessarily just want to be forced to use your Dustbreaker on turn 4, because on turn 5, 6, 7, it's still good because their deck is built around developing a board with totems. So I think that protecting yourself from having to use Dustbreaker is a very legitimate argument to just play this, even if you have it as well.
Yeah, this is really the only setup for Alliestrasza, because by having 2 high priority targets to kill, it makes it difficult for Slysssa, unless she has that Scale Worm, the one of copy, to help her not have to make that difficult decision of which one does she want to kill, the value generating one or the one that provides a lot of attack boost to anything that's on board. And now, full dominance as soon as turn 4, and once again, the name of the game is Alliestrasza needed to be ahead on board, but every single game consistently on turn 4, it hasn't been the case.
Right. I mean, look at this hand again. She has 8-drop, 8-drop. She got a 6-drop up for Menacing Nimbus. She has a Sea Giant, a Fire Elemental, like a lot of the most expensive stuff in her deck. And if she had a Merkspark Eel, maybe a little bit earlier, if she had a Merkspark Eel, now, for instance, being able to swing things back in her favor would be a really big deal.
Oh my goodness. It's almost like every minion that has impact on the board outside Dustbreaker is being drawn right now, because Shaman has a lot of things worth stealing. Primordial Drake will clean up most of that board. And Slysssa is not going to even be phased. She can clear off most of the board and develop. She's feeling so confident. I don't blame her. This is looking very bad. Alliestrasza didn't even have a play prior to this draw.
Right. I mean, she was a minion away from being able to play that Sea Giant, and again, just 8-drop, 8-drop, 6-drop, 6-drop. She's going to be able to start playing pretty powerful things next turn. But her deck is not the one that is the most powerful in the end game here. This is very comparable to the even Paladin game, where Slysssa just gained control of the bird early on and really was never at risk of losing it. Here, Psychic Scream drawn. She has Cabal Shadow Priest to take one of these chain gangs. She's just really just not going to let up here and just keep pressing this board advantage. And if anything, even Shaman is even more reliant on holding the board than Paladin. Paladin at least has board clears in the form of a Quality Consecration. All Allie has is that Hagatha in her hand.
Right, that's her saving grace, and why I feel like there's still a shred of hope. A lot of things will get swept away by the Hagatha, but it's still a few turns away, and maybe by then the damage will be dealt, and you're going to constantly be in fear of dying the moment they draw a finisher like Shadow Reaper Anduin. That being said, I have seen Hagatha do some quite amazing things in Hearthstone and be able to single-handedly propel people back into the game or even to a victory where it feels like it's unwinnable, because there's a lot of powerful spells in Shaman's arsenal to help them generate minions or even big comebacks through things like Stormbringer and making a giant wide board.
Well, but in order for that to happen, A, you need the Hagatha to actually keep you alive by clearing off enough of the board, and B, you have to have enough time, because you're not just getting just killed by Anduin plus Mind Blasts, and a lot of Slyssa's minions are too big to die to Hagatha. Hagatha is still a couple of turns away, so this is going to give Slysssa a lot of time to push damage. When you're in this sort of position as the priest, you really need to be thinking, how do I possibly lose this game? You have such a strong board presence. You're at such an advantage. You have to think, what are the possible things that could happen that could actually lead to me losing? And I think that the only thing that really is Hagatha at this point, because you just have such a firm control of the board. So you need to start thinking about actually ending the game and setting up a board that's strong against an opposing Hagatha.
Yeah, with this heal, looks like Slyssa's not going to... Well, I was thinking that she wasn't going to go for any trade play, because if you heal the Pyromancer, you might as well just toss it in and play around the Hagatha, as you mentioned. But now Allie has to hope that she can stall for one more turn. She does have, incidentally, a very decent card of doing that with Frost Elemental. That's not something that I think Slysssa will expect, and it can help stave off just a little bit of extra damage to potentially help Alliestrasza swing the board. But yes, that Cabal Shadow Priest stealing the the Saturday Night Chain Gang and not weakening the minion, but helping Slysssa is definitely a huge thorn in her side at the moment.
Yeah, there is the Sea Giant here that can come down. There's also potentially this Frost Elemental. I think that we may see the Sea Giant come down, if only because it's going to be... no, she's actually going to go ahead and try to freeze things up here.
She would die to like a single
Okay. Oh, yeah. I actually wasn't paying enough attention to exactly what the lifesteal stood at. You're totally right. She is going to have that Sea Giant rather potentially stranded if she does go for the Hagatha next turn. But now Slyssa's got to be thinking, okay, you go to 8 mana next turn. That means potentially Alec here. That means Hagatha. That means Lich King. So I wouldn't be surprised to see her maybe trade off some of her smaller minions into the larger minions so that she's able to have a board that survives the Hagatha.
Yeah, or Kalimos. I mean, those are all possibilities because Frost Elemental was played.
It's true, yeah. Kalimos is also the same thing, which it actually helps you quite a bit in terms of trying to figure out how do I play around these things. Oops. Picks up a Mind Blast here.
That's right, and the Pyromancer activation is very nice too. Although, actually, it sometimes works against you because of the AoE, so you have to be a little cautious, but there is Divine Hymn to help restore some health if you're feeling like you're getting too low.
All right, well, she can actually fire off this Mind Blast into the Divine Hymn.
Yes.
And this is going to heal up her board, clear off a lot of Alliestrasza's board. It looks like Slysssa may be on the verge of completing this sweep. What do you guys think in the chat? Let us know with the poll function. She is just 1 damage off lethal. I know how I'd vote. I think she's going to do it.
Well, we know that the overkill bounty record is set by Channeland with that plus 39, so not really the overkill.
I don't think she's going to get like a 40-40 in play anytime soon.
Yeah. So if you go up to 6 with Hagatha, because you gain 5 armor from the hero card plus clear the board, you still are looking at 8 damage on the board. So that is death. Is there any out here for Alliestrasza to stay alive in this game, to stay alive in this tournament? I don't think so.
No, there just isn't. I mean, she can play the Hagatha here. It clears off only a couple of minions, and she's still dead on board. She could play Alec here and try to fight for the board, but it can't kill that much. And there's even just like a Dragon Maw Scorcher to get rid of the Divine Shield can potentially just set up the lethal as well.
Yes. Yep, so Allie doing her best to at least put some kind of roadblock in the way.
Yeah, and there's 5 health against 8 attack here, but what we're saying, that Dragon Maw Scorcher or the Primordial Drake, either one just does enough damage to clear the road for Allie's minions, or rather Slyssa's minions, as Slysssa completes the sweep over Alliestrasza and sends her friend and teammate packing from the tournament.
Yeah, Dragon Priest able to crush all of these tempo-aggressive decks as Slysssa will cruise to a 3-0 victory from the round of 8 all the way to our top 4 bracket. But that won't stop her from, once again, recognizing teammate, friend, practice partner, and mutual respect for the competitor.